Hi, everyone. This is Craig Zelzer from PCDN. Delighted to be here with you for Season 9, Episode 9 of the Social Change Career Podcast. We're here with Diana Suarez, who is the co-founder and CEO of GLOT, which is an amazing nonprofit that's doing work for social impact through languages. And she'll tell you lots about that. She's also an adjunct professor at EAFIT in Medellin, Colombia, which is a super innovative university here that's known for innovation and social impact. This session is supported by the Rotary Peace Fellowship. So if you are personally interested or know someone who's looking to upskill, the fellowship applications open in February, and they offer 8 different programs or 8 different universities. You can do a full master's degree at one of their 6 partner universities in related to peace building and or development. And then they have 2 3-month certificate training programs that are open to mid-career professionals or people with at least 5 years experience, and that's located in Thailand and Uganda. So please check it out. I'll put the links here. And for those who don't know PCDN, we're a great platform that connects people around change-making careers. We do lots of different things. We do this podcast a few times a month. Please check out the 100 other episodes with innovators from all parts of the world. We have a wonderful career campus, which you can check out and get lots of support. And we have a workshop this week on personal finance for changemakers for the career campus, open office hours, newsletters. So please check us out. And while we're getting started, this is streaming on PCDN on my LinkedIn, Craig, so LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. While you're watching, we want to make this as interactive as possible, so please feel free to put in the chat box where you're watching from, and also we'll get into open questions and answers. So all you have to do is put in the chat box where you're just going to check. So we have a few people here. Welcome Kagla, welcome Sayed Kabir. So we have quite a few people already. Let us know what countries you're coming from. And after about 10 minutes, we'll open this up to lots of interactive questions. And briefly, and Diana and I are both based in Medellin, Colombia. So we've known each other for a couple of years, but we're in different parts of the city today. And Diana has a very strong background in social impact, education, sustainability. She has a bachelor's from Jaime Esasa University in industrial engineering, a master's from Universidad Nacional de Colombia, which is one of the best or the best public university in the country in environment and development. She has worked a lot on clean air, climate mitigation, and all sorts of other things. And then she's worked for the mayor's office of Medellin on education innovation. She's worked for the university, National University, and others, and kind of monitoring climate pollution. And then in 2018, she founded GLOT, which she can tell you what that name means, but it's really doing brilliant educational innovation for young people and educators and has a bold vision. And so thank you very much for joining us today, Diana. And I'll just take a quick look. So welcome Kagla, welcome Sayed Kabir, welcome Natalia from Bogota, welcome Tula from the Caribbean. I think you're the first person we've had from St. Lucia. Hopefully the weather is quite nice. And so please let us know as we go throughout this where you're watching from. And after about 10 minutes, we'll get into open questions. So you can even start putting your questions now. And thank you very much for joining us. And I forgot to say, in about 2 weeks, this episode will be converted to an episode of our Social Change Career podcast. So you can look it up on the PCN website or any major podcasting platform. And we always appreciate ratings. And, again, there's about 100 episodes with the coolest people around the world. So Diana, thank you very much for joining us. Which space are you in today in terms of co-working spaces?
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so happy to be here, Craig. And yeah, love everyone who is listening to this podcast and watching this live session. Right now, I am in Circular Co-working that is near somehow Laureles, like is another part of the city. And I'm so happy to be here, like sharing a little bit of my impact story.
Okay, and so can you talk a little, actually first to start off with, so you went from, climate and working in air pollution. So for people who don't know, Medellin and Bogota both struggle with air pollution. And
yes.
I've been here for 5 years. My wife, Catalina, we work together. She's from Bogota that has even worse air pollution. And Medellin's probably about 260 in the world in terms of worst polluted cities. So it's not as bad as some cities, but how in the world did you go from engineering to working actually on measuring, air pollution, and talk about that, to setting up your own NGO?
Yeah, that's interesting. And I started working at this university, like as you mentioned, the most important public university here in Colombia. Is the biggest one. And something interesting is like I started working as a project manager specifically for an air quality laboratory, and you get to know different things about your own city and air pollution as a whole. So Medellin is a beautiful city. For those of you who don't know it, it's like located in a valley, and for that specific topography we have, it's a polluted city. So I was in charge specifically of leading like programs, educational research, and exchange even with researchers from all over the world for this laboratory. So that gave me experience specifically on project management, and working for a university is also like taking into account like the educational system here in Colombia.
And then how did you make the switch? So what was your path? And welcome, we have Sylvia from Nairobi, Suzanne from Doha, Joshua from the US. So how in the world did you go from working on, air pollution to, I mean, you've always been an educator, but how did you make that switch?
Well, actually, it was in 2018 for a job crisis. I was like, I wasn't happy with that job. I have money in my bank account, but you know what? My heart was empty. I was looking for more meaningful things like in my life, what I can do, like I don't know, to make this world a better place. And it was something like I know in my heart was lacking. So one of the things that I did in 2018 is like try to figure out what are the things that I was like, or I am really good at, what are my talents, and what are the things, even my dreams, like the things that I would like to pursue, and what were like specifically my dreams. So with this information, what I came up was GLOT, this organization, that actually the name GLOT means language in Greek. So everything is about languages, but with social impact. Like from since I was a child, I really like languages, but it's how you can make with your talents something better.
One piece of what would you say is the central challenge or opportunity that GLOT is trying to address?
Well, at the beginning, we thought that one of the main challenge will be like second language acquisition, right? But working with the specific low income communities here, we started making like specific projects with English, teaching English with children. But one of the things that touched my heart the most that were that children couldn't recognize letters in our native language, that is Spanish. So this is something that is like for me a personal challenge, but it's like how we can make sure that children can read and write in their mother tongue. Because with that basic knowledge, we think about it like it's a super basic skill that is like the foundational skills for like a lifelong learning.
So can you talk a little bit in terms of the data around literacy in Colombia? Maybe start first pre-pandemic. So how do we compare across Latin America or the world? And then actually, obviously COVID has had a huge negative impact on educational achievement in Colombia,
Yes.
being at a school. So how the pandemic's also affected children and teachers.
Yeah, that's a super good question because Colombia is performing below the average in Latin America for reading and math. But actually, I really don't like, I know statistics are super important, but statistics are that numbers, right? And we like to turn that into stories. And the stories we have, for instance, is like children that fled Venezuela, for example, that are migrants from Venezuela and are established here as displaced people with their families. The stories behind them is so hard for some children like to adapt to the school here. And imagine a children in fifth grade, 10 years roughly, who is not able to read only a paragraph, who is only able to read words by words. So imagine that, like not a number specifically, but the stories and the struggles that kind of children could have. So this is the data I would like to show you, the stories behind that problem here in Colombia, and it's also like in different parts of the world.
And how would you say, or either stories or data in terms of a little bit describe how the COVID pandemic affected both public and private schools in Colombia in terms of just actually learning? And what is the gap that people are talking about in terms of how much education was lost or how much youth, whether it's Venezuelan migrants, displaced people, or Colombian citizens?
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things, right, that is happening is like we know there is a learning lost from the pandemic. We don't know exactly because we lack, like, for instance, assessment to measure and to see the extent of this problem. But one of the things that we can see right now, like if before the pandemic there was something called learning poverty, is even bigger and deeper right now. So we need to figure it out and try to work for like different projects or try to find the solution of this challenge, how we can make sure that every child can read and write according to their level. That's a huge challenge that I take it personally, but it's something that we need to work as non-profit organization, as public organization, to make like this like a solution for this.
So and please everyone, welcome Ayat from Germany. Please feel free to start putting your questions or comments. And if you're just joining us, feel free to put a sentence or two about your background. So Diana, one of the questions that we often get a lot is, so you've worked for higher education, you've worked for public institutions, you've worked nonprofit, maybe you've done some private sector work. What are your reflections having worked across sectors, the advantages and disadvantages in your experience, and then why for you was starting a nonprofit a smart choice, but also what are the challenges in having founded a nonprofit?
Yeah, well, that's a super good question. Every sector has their pros and cons, but for me, like having this like opportunity to work for different like institutions, for me, I think one of the things everyone has an advantage to work towards like a specific goal. For instance, in public organizations, you have the reach, right? Because you can reach more people because there is the place that decisions are made. So this is a perfect space to do so. But one of the cons is like bureaucracy and the time to make those decisions because sometimes it's difficult to get, for instance, the signature of an agreement for the mayor. So this is kind of the things that you need to you have in public organizations that is different from a private organization. For me, for instance, working with this NGO, you have the freedom to innovate, and that is something that you can pivot really quickly. You can create new programs, you can measure the impact of those programs. So this kind of freedom and flexibility you have in private sector is amazing.
I think we might have just gotten cut off for a second. Let's see if we can get Diana back. Hold on, so I'm just seeing if this is working. Sorry for the technical problems. Let me see, can you hear me? I think we just got cut off. I'm gonna do a refresh. So apologies, I think we just got cut off. So let's see if we can keep this going. Diana, let me know if you can hear me. Excuse me, everyone, I'm gonna pop back out and see. I'm gonna come right back. Can you
I
hear me?
lost you a little
Yeah.
bit.
Okay, you're back, yes. So
Okay, perfect.
hold on. So we have, apologies everyone, there's always technical challenges. So we have about 30 people watching from around the world. Apologies we'll edit this out in the podcast. So Diana, can you hear me okay? Let's see how the connection is. Can you hear me? I think we're having some technical challenges. Let's see if we can you hear me? Should we turn off your video for a little bit? I think we're having some technical. Let me know if you can hear me. I'm just going to do a quick speed test.
Could you hear me now?
Yes, but I think the connection, it was really strong and it just got cut off. So apologies to everyone watching. We're going to try to fix this. I will edit this out in the actual podcast episode. So Diana, is it working okay? Or I might try switching my internet. So excuse me, everyone. I'll do a quick switch. So Diana, excuse me for a second. I'll switch to my hotspot just in case. We're going to get Diana coming back. So apologies. I'm going to just message her. So again, we'll edit this out, but give us a minute. We will get Diana back. Again, we'll edit this out. Apologies for the challenge. Let's see if we can get her back. Apologies for the challenges. Diana, let me know if you can hear me. And again, we'll just give us a minute. We'll get this worked out. So there's always technical challenges. I'm going to switch my network. We got this back. So apologies, everyone. Diana, can you say hello and see if this works okay? Can you hear me? I'm going to try one more time. Diana?
Yeah, could you hear me?
Yes, yeah, that's better. Okay, so
Perfect. I'm sorry for that.
it happened. So apologies to everyone. So we have about 30 people from around the world. Apologies, but we'll edit this out in the actual podcast. So Diana, you were talking about the advantages and disadvantages of working public sector versus nonprofit. And you were saying in the public sector, and it'd be interesting for people to hear a little bit about what you did in the mayor's office around education. But you were saying there you have more reach, but much more bureaucracy. And you were saying in GLOT in the nonprofit sector, there's almost no bureaucracy, but it can be, a lot more flexibility. So any other reflections on that? And for people who are thinking about what sector to go into, whether for-profit, nonprofit, philanthropy, education, what are your recommendations for how someone orients themselves?
Well, I think one of the things that you need to consider is to know like your why, because your why is something that will like guide you during that process, and to know also the limitation and advantages of each sector, right? If you know that it's so hard for you to work with that bureaucracy or that like kind of not that flexible public sphere, so let's try maybe in a startup or something like that could be more like into your own like I don't know, the things that you really like. So it's something that you need to balance that. And also it's not only like maybe we think about a lot like maybe I can work, I would like to work here or here, and just knock the door. And I am the one who believes that the door that is for you will open. So it's like try to like different strategies, try to knock different doors, not only close your opportunities to one specific sector. If you think you have a match and good fit for any specific position, let's try it. Like you don't lose anything if you try.
Okay, thank you so much. So welcome, Gilbert from UK, and I forgot the person's name, from Swaziland. And again, please feel free to start putting your questions and comments in the LinkedIn chat, and we'll bring them into the discussion. So Diana, can you talk a little bit about how you've upskilled to go from engineering to education nonprofit management? Was it through degrees? I've seen you've taken a lot of MOOCs online, massive open online courses, but how have you upskilled to do kind of a career pivot, and what are your suggestions for others of how to best upskill?
Well, I think for me, could you hear well? Great. I just lost the connection.
Yeah, you're back. You're back. I got you here. Keep going. I can hear you.
Great. Can you
I
hear
got you.
me?
Yeah, keep going. Yes. We were talking about upskilling. I can hear you. Can you hear me? Apologies, everyone, for our technical challenges. Usually we don't have this issue. We're talking with Diana. Please feel free to start putting your questions. I'm going to message Diana. Yes, I can hear you, Diana. Okay, we're trying again. Usually we haven't had this many problems, but I can hear you, Diana. Can you hear me? I'll try. Nope, we lost Diana again. I'm not sure what the problems are, but we'll keep going and hopefully we'll finish this and edit it out some. Okay, I'm just waiting to see if we can get Diana back. Well, we lost her again, but again, we'll try to put this into a really good podcast episode and edit this part out. But while we're waiting, welcome Richard from Swaziland. If anybody has questions or comments you would like to add, feel free to start putting them here. And Diana just came back with us, so I'm not sure. Usually this doesn't happen, but it is technology.
Yes.
So
Yes,
Diana,
I
you
don't
were
know.
just talking a little about upskilling and your recommendations for others
Yes.
in terms of,
Well,
go ahead.
I think one of the things that make perfect. One of the things that for me makes a huge difference is language skills. Actually, it is one of the things that allowed me to go into like higher education and then pivot to NGO, right? Because I started like working with international development, project management for international cooperation projects specifically because I was the only one able to speak in English. So for me, that makes a huge difference. When you know like a second language, a third language, you can have access to more information. You can connect with more people. So for me, it's one of the skills that could be like a change maker.
Okay. And then what other type of skills have you developed and what's the other ways you've done that? Let me know if you can hear me. What's other type of skills you've developed? Well, I apologize to everyone. This is not our best in terms of, I'm going to try switching networks again. Diana, I'll be right back. We're trying again, so we'll see. So while we're waiting for Diana to hopefully come back, does anyone have questions they would like to ask or comments or share resources? I'm seeing if Diana can come back in. Well, we'll
Right.
keep.
Could you hear me? I'm sorry.
It's
Now
okay.
I'm connected. I am connected with my cell phone now.
Yes,
I
it's
don't
no
know what
problem.
happened.
It happens. So
Yeah,
what
I'm sorry.
it could be my end too. I tried different network. So what other tips do you have for people? Actually, the connection's very good now, so maybe your phone's better.
Perfect.
So what
Perfect.
other tips or suggestions do you have for people who are looking to upskill? Is it grad school, fellowships, open online
Mm-hmm.
courses, and what are your favorite platforms for learning?
Well, for me, um, free options is are the best. Why? Because you cannot wait until you have maybe the money. One of the resources that you can use right now is your time. How you can use your time wisely. So it's, for instance, I love as a platform EDX. For me, it's one of my favorites, and it's like there are tons of courses that you can take, like audit courses, and it's like you can like make that free resources in your own advantage. So how you can use like different platforms, how you can use like even fellowships or things that you know they're lacking in your cv, and how you can upskill that using like your time. So it's something that sometimes we blame that we don't have money, or we don't have like we're not living in a abroad to learn a second language, but you can do it right now if you like use your time wisely.
Okay. And you've also had fellowships or scholarships both at the National University and for studying in France. So what are your
Yes.
tips for how did you find these fellowships and how do others, if they want to build a competitive application, what are your suggestions?
Well, one of the things is like plan ahead. For instance, in 2012, I had the opportunity to go to the States to improve my English. And after that, when I checked my English, I thought, okay, now I would like to learn French. So one of the things that was in 2013 when I fully decide like to start learning French, having in mind that option, like that I wanted to do a master program, maybe like an internship or something specifically in France. So in 2015, I started my master program. I got a scholarship from the university that I really didn't expect that, but happened. And it's like try to organize different things in your life to make the things happen, because maybe we are waiting like without doing anything. But for instance, when I went to France in 2016, I had a good level of French. So this is one of the things that can make you like different in your career, because it's not something, for instance, learning a language or learning a skill takes time. So how, what are the things that you are doing today for the dream or the goal you have, maybe like for the future?
Okay. Thank you so much. So questions are starting to come in, so please feel to put them. So Hannah's asked, we talked a little about the post-COVID challenges in the Colombian education sector. So what do you think is being done to address the changes or the challenges, and how are they different from the previous ones for sustainable impact?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. One of the things that the pandemic like bring about is like an existing problem, for instance, of connectivity. How we can make sure that rural schools or schools that don't have a good connectivity are included in the educational system. So right now, like from the pandemic, the government started to think about of different strategies, and not only like in the public sector, but also NGOs. Actually, in 2020, that was like super challenging year. Like for from an NGO, like the income reduced a lot, but we have that challenge because we work with communities that wasn't connected. So having this problem, we developed a training process using an open source tool. And with that, and with the previous like implementation we have, we put those innovations together, and we won a prize for educational innovation in Latin America. So this is only an example of the things that have been done like here in Colombia, and not only in Colombia but also in Kenya, in different parts of Asia, in the global south in general, in generally, to tackle that educational problems.
Okay, thank you so much. So Gilbert has a question. He's working with a team of volunteers in Cameroon around children's education in conflict-affected countries. So Cameroon has conflict over French, English divide, and other things. They have a social business model, and very proud of the volunteers working with him and his team to improve education nutrition. How does he effectively get the volunteers and his team to upskill to better address the needs as they grow? So I guess the question in general is both how do you attract volunteers who are actually committed to what you're doing? Can you convert some of them to paid staff at some point? And how do you suggest keeping volunteers or paid staff engaged and continuous skills building? Thank
Yeah,
you, Gilbert.
that's a super great question. And it's like actually we started GLOT as volunteering. Actually volunteering my time on that, because in the NGO like sector it's super difficult to get like that point of sustainability in every aspect, social, environmental, and financial, especially financial. And for me, one of the things that really attracts volunteers is a compelling cause. Like, what is your why? I mentioned it before, but what is your cause? Because there are many talented people that are willing to donate their time, their talents, their efforts to join your effort, to join your cause. And for me, it's like having different strategies. For instance, one of the things like we have in GLOT is like, okay, we are building a team of volunteers that maybe speak several languages, and one of the things that we invite them is to give back, right? So how we can tell them stories and like let them know the reality, because maybe there are world, if we only scroll down into Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, we're seeing like super beautiful stories, but we are not knowing the reality of our own like communities. So how we can invite them to join and to visit communities, and this is something that they can give back, but also for me it's how what they are receiving, right? So this could be like they can receiving like the reward of doing a great job, or maybe what we do also at GLOT, they have with our organization the opportunity to interact and connect with people abroad. So for instance, if we have like volunteerings or people working for us that are willing or would like to learn English, they can connect with English speakers. So this is kind of exchange that everyone is winning in a cause, and this is also that help you have a compelling like call for volunteers.
Okay. Can you, I think Gilbert asked about sustainability. So can you talk a little bit about the business model of GLOT? And, we've talked in the past. So is it mostly grant and volunteer time, or have you been able to build some type of revenue from teaching foreign languages to others or corporations? Like what are your goals in terms of financial resources? Not in terms of the number, but
Oh,
how do you
yeah.
diversify?
Yeah, that's a super good question in the nonprofit sector, because we have a myth that nonprofit organizations cannot get income. We can generate income. The only difference is that our income goes again to make impact, right? So this is a myth that we can like we need to rethink about it. And for instance, like to get that social business model is one of the things that you need to settle, because sometimes when we start a nonprofit organization, we think only with our heart, right? And we need to think also like different, like it's not only making a social impact or environmental impact, how you are going to get like the financial impact, how you are going to get your own payment, how you are going to make that sustainable. For instance, I mentioned that we started with volunteers, but right now we are having a team like at the beginning where like those volunteers are working right now and I'm getting paid. And one of the things, like you need to establish different strategies. For instance, one of the strategies that we used and we're still using is like applications for international cooperation, grants, prizes, different like strategies like that, creating partnerships also with organizations at the international level. But you can do that if you have in your team someone that will lead that strategy. Could also be like a strategy like selling different like services. For instance, we have translation and interpretation services, and a percentage of that revenue goes to our literacy program. And we also offer to companies or businesses like the opportunity to have something called mentoring, when they can provide for their employees some kind of like cultural exchanges and the ways they can learn a second language. This is also a service that they pay, and a percentage again goes to the program with children. So you need to think about like services, but that are connected with your cause. You cannot create services that are not aligned, because it's like you will miss your north, right?
Okay, thank you so much. So we have a question from Avantika. She's an educator and worked one-on-one supporting community in India and now kids in Colombia to improve their reading, writing, computing, and math skills. Any guidance for how to upgrade her skills? I think it's a her, I'm sorry, and to basically build a career in this area. So that's anything for Avantika, but also in general. What do you see as the career paths in connected to a sustainable development goal for, education, innovation, or literacy? Like, how do you encourage people to develop the skills and build a career in this area? Thank
Yes,
you,
for
Amantika.
me, yes, for me specifically, and one of the things that I am trying right now to share more information about it is try to make courses related to impact evaluation. Because before in the nonprofit sector was like you measure your impact like telling the number of beneficiaries you had. And right now that's changing a lot, because right now those organizations that are willing to pay for you pay for impact. So how you can learn how to develop a theory of change, to develop your logical framework, how you can know how to measure your impact, maybe not at the scale at the beginning, but you don't need to be like a super big nonprofit organization to start measuring your impact. So that kind of things like impact measurement, data analysis is a great source of things that you can learn. And also there are like different opportunities. For instance, this week I will post some amazing opportunities from Acumen. There are like courses for free that will help you like upskill your social impact career.
Thank you so much, Avantika. And just in terms of careers and education, PCDN is great. Relief Web, particularly for humanitarian education jobs. The Interagency for Network for Education Emergencies has a wonderful weekly email about education emergency jobs, DevEx, so there's not just one place you have to look around, but I
Mm-hmm.
guess, Diana, when people come to you and they say, I want to do work similar to what you're doing, where do you suggest they go to find the fellowships, jobs, internships, and consultancies? What are your favorite resources or networks?
Well, for me, I think we underestimate the power of LinkedIn and how we can make connections there, meaningful connections, not only how many people are following us or like what is the human connection like between the people we have there. And this is what I am mentioning that because you don't know if the people who you are like connecting right now is will be your next like partner for a program or a project. So this kind of like for me is a really good source of information about careers, about fellowships, about like different opportunities. So it's like how you can spend your time there wisely, like connecting with more people, but also like in a smart way, like who is the people that are like posting like jobs in my field or in the field that I am interested to get into. And this is like for me is like underestimate.
Okay, thank you. So we have about 5 more minutes if people want to put more questions or comments, and thank you everyone so far. So one question that I have is, in the US, there are a lot of countries, educators are under stress because of underfunding, overwork, and then some countries you can add in insecurity or just battles over curriculum. So what are you seeing among the teachers that you work with, either in Colombia or elsewhere, in terms of, a lot of people in the US are leaving the profession. There's, a
Mhm.
number of states have a deficit of teachers. And so what are you seeing in Colombia, and what are the innovations you're seeing where actually teacher and student well-being is at the forefront versus just kind of, checking the boxes?
Yes, well, I think it's a common thing right now, like after the pandemic, that the world like seems to be like changing rapidly, and it's burnout. And like teachers and many people working for companies or for schools feel like they're like super stressed, as you mentioned. And here, particularly in Colombia, and I think in several parts of the world, the status quo is super like it's something heavy. What I mean with that is like teachers need to follow a heavy curriculum. They need to attach to that, and maybe they don't have time to catch up learning levels on children. So this is one of the things that they need to check boxes, as you mentioned. They are working like several hours. They're also like trying to balance. And I think one of the things that are important right now is how we include in our programs that part of like the well-being, right? The well-being not only for our students but also for teachers. How we can create, for instance, like training process for them that adapt to their schedule. So it's like also to see this kind of issues that are, I think, all over the world. And I will add something important, great, is like if you are working for an NGO, try to set your limits, because burning out and work balance is something that is really an issue.
Okay, thank you. So again, we have a few more minutes if anyone has questions or comments. So one question for you, again, we have an 11-year-old son, and Kathleen and I would both do a lot of research on the future work in upskilling and how careers are changing in the fourth industrial revolution. And our 11-year-old, he went to a private primary school, private preschool, then went to our public school, and then in Colombia he goes to a private school. And we moved him to a school that's very experimental, and the students all go at their own pace, and there's no teachers, there's only tutors. And so one of the things, if you think about like how education could be done to better prepare people, whether they're in rural areas or in cities, like what do you see as the most interesting education innovations that, whether it's organizations or processes that are not training people to memorize things and test, but actually equipping them for these global challenges we're facing?
Yes, I think one of the things that like more we are moving forward is like learning like based on competencies, right? So how you can develop like and learn through like developing projects. And this is one of the things that we are moving forward, that like when where artificial intelligence data analysis is a must. But we cannot forget, and again, like the basic skills. Right now maybe the basic skills is digital skills, but what happened with children or people who cannot read and write? And again, I maybe sound repetitive with that, but we cannot forget those that historically are left behind, because if we're not thinking about them, the gap will be higher, and inequalities will be higher. So it's like, of course we need to think about like those digital innovations and disruptions, but from a human perspective, with a human sense.
Okay. So what are you working on learning currently, or what it could be things you're reading for fun or Netflix shows you're watching. So whether either it could be fun things or professionally, what are you doing these days apart from work?
Yes, well, for fun, I am learning Italian, and it's totally for fun. And it's like I take advantage of like Netflix on Italian, or reading some books that I really am passionate about. So it's how I can like turn my free time into learning also, but not without pressure, like not feeling like I need to be speaking Italian in the next month. No, just having fun. And this is something that I really enjoy right now. And also swimming. So this is kind of the things that I'm learning right now, like trying to improve. But it's like try to make things apart from work that is something important, because it's like how you prioritize also your health.
Okay. And then my last question, and feel free if anybody else has questions or comments, is actually two questions. So what professional networks are you part of, or is GLOT part of? So is it 100.org, or the WISE Summit in Qatar? Like, what are the places you go, or the publications or the groups or websites that you go to kind of learn and share about education and impact beyond just Colombia?
Yes, great question. Well, I am part of two networks. Like specifically, one of them is Impact Hub, that is a global network of social entrepreneurs. And also with GLOT, we are part of PAL Network. PAL Network is People Action for Learning Network, that is based in Kenya. And this is a partnership of organizations working in the global south to advance children's learning. So this is something that I really recommend to be part of, like this kind of collaborative learning networks, because it's something that will help you like gain more like support, and also connect and learn from different things that are done like in different parts of the world. And of course, I am part of PCDN Global.
Very cool. Actually, so two more questions. I keep saying that, but I promise that's it. So one is,
Don't worry.
as an educator, engineer, innovator based in the global south, do you see power relations changing where, it's not so much global north driven, or, what do you see in terms of, power and dynamics around education innovation and who's setting the agenda?
Well, I think right now, like the momentum for global South power partnerships are getting like a good moment in history, because before we think of like the innovations came from developed countries, and no, right now is like in the field with those, for instance, living the hard conditions, like the innovations are there, right? So, and it's a moment where we believe also more in the powerful of in the power of those connections, because for instance with Pal Network we can learn from the things that are being that people are is doing in India or in Pakistan or Bangladesh. So it's the kind of thing that we really are looking toward our peers, if I
Yeah.
can say that term.
Okay, thanks, Talu, for joining us. And again, any last questions, feel free to put them in. So my last question, I live in Medellin, I've been here 5 years. For people who don't know Medellin, like what if actually, so what would you like them to know about Medellin? The good or the challenges or the innovation?
Well, that's a super good question. And every time I have the chance to talk about Colombia and Medellin, I really like to tell the stories that maybe are unknown, because maybe people relate Colombia with bad things or things that like in the world told for bad stories. But I really tell the stories that we're really friendly people. There is a beautiful country, a lot of biodiversity, and it's I used to mention that in a previous presentation. It's like, I know Colombia is too dangerous, but the danger is to be in love with Colombia. So, like, take a chance to know more about our culture, take a chance to learn more about like what is happening here in terms of education, in terms of the fourth industrial revolution, because it's something that will you will be amazed of that country.
Yeah, so Colombia, in Medellin, we have a really interesting center called Ruta N, which is a
Yes.
public-private partnership innovation hub around future of transport and education and upskilling and careers. And it's one of the few centers in the Global South that has a World Economic Forum Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution. And Colombia it's the second most biodiverse country in the world. So it's very, obviously lots of challenges. And there
Mm-hmm.
was an ad campaign about 20 years ago about Colombia said the only risk is you want to stay. I mean, there
Yes.
are challenges here. It is not perfect. And then
Yeah, yeah.
the last question is, how can people engage with you? And then how can people help GLOT? Like, how are you, like both in just terms of staying informed, like do you have a newsletter or go to the website? And then what are you looking for? Obviously, probably resources, but other types of things you're seeking out for GLOT.
Yes, well, you can connect with me through LinkedIn, and maybe you are going to put my link there. And also, you can reach through our website, and to learn more about GLOT, like subscribe to our newsletter. The website is www.glot.org. So I will be more than happy like to connect with you if you have questions, and also if I can be of any support, like we can keep going this conversation.
Okay, so thank you so much, Diana, for taking time out of your busy schedule to share your wisdom. Please, thank you, Solomon, and everyone. I think we had people from about 20 countries. Apologies again
Perfect.
for the little bit of
Yes.
technical challenges, but it's part of the world of, not every, thank you to Rotary for helping sponsor this. Please check out the Rotary Peace Fellowship. It is amazing. Please check out PCDN, a reminder, our career campus. We have a free weekly newsletter. Check out the podcast. And we also, in the career campus, we do weekly office hours, hundreds of opportunities a month we curate. And we also have workshops. So one this week on personal finance for change makers, and then one next month on remote work and social impact. There's lots of thank yous coming in. So thank you, Gilbert, Salim, and Ayat, and everyone
Yes.
else. Our next podcast, I think, is going to be I think it's October 30th with Edrich. I'm going blanking his last name, but he worked at Google and Twitter. He's from Singapore and is a digital nomad. And after working for tech companies for many years, he has built his own platform called, I think it's wellspring.io, and it's like wellness through an app and community building. So it's something very different. So thank you so much, Diana, and everyone for participating. This will be up in our podcast platform in about 2 weeks, but you can watch the recording here YouTube, or Twitter. Everyone, check out Medine, check out GLOT, follow Diana on LinkedIn, because she also shares. How often do you share on a weekly basis interesting educational
Like every
jobs?
day, yeah,
Okay.
Monday to
Yeah.
Friday, like I am
Okay.
sharing different resources and stories.
Okay. So thank you very much, everyone. Have a great
Thank
afternoon,
you.
evening, or morning.
Perfect. Thank you, Greg.